Have you ever been watching a streamer like CoCarnage do something awesome, and then after he does it, his chat starts erupting in a specific kind of emote, and then this happens?
Applause, please.
We're going to make a system that recreates that functionality today. First off, you should definitely go and follow Ko. I'll leave a link to his stream down in the description. He's actually one of the reasons that I started streaming to begin with, and he's a great guy. But anyway, there are a few things that are happening whenever those alerts are triggered. First, a specific emote has to be spammed within the chat within a certain amount of time. Then, the alert has to be triggered on the screen, and then whenever it removes itself, it has to have a delay before it can happen again. And so the way to recreate this is actually much simpler than what you think. So the first thing that we're going to do is we are going to add ourselves two new global variables in our bot. The first variable we're going to need is a constant, and we're going to call this alert emote. And this variable is going to be a JSON object that contains a list of every emote that we want to watch the chat for. So in our case, we're just going to do this for one emote to make this simple, but you can do this for as many emotes as you want. So what you do is you have your key be the emote that you want to watch for. So in my case, I'm going to do a global Twitch emote of Stinky Cheese, primarily because whenever I play games like Elden Ring or any of the Souls games, I end up cheesing systems within the game to one degree or another, and it both entertains and frustrates my chat, depending on what kind of viewer you are. And this is going to be another JSON object, which is going to have four attributes. The first attribute is going to be the used amount. This is going to keep track of how many times this emote has been spammed. We're going to start it off at 0. Then we're going to say a time to trigger. This is going to keep track of how long we have to spam the emote before either the attempt to trigger the alert expires or we trigger the alert. So in this case, we're going to just start it off at the current date and time, like so. And then we're going to have a cooldown attribute, which once the alert is actually triggered, this is going to be the time at which we cannot re-trigger the alert until the cooldown is over. We're also going to set this to just a new date and time, so the current date and time. And then the last one is going to be an alert message that we are going to pass to the overlay itself. And for this message, I want it to just say, throw the cheese in all caps. And you can, of course, have your message be whatever you like. And once we have this constant, we need to create another constant, and we need to call this one alert emotes key. This is going to be equal to an array, so object.keys, of every emote that is in the alerts emotes object that we just defined. So the alert emotes. And the reason that we need this is that once we are watching for emotes within the chat, we need to quickly be able to check every emote that's available here. And the best way to do that is within an array. And so for every emote object that you add like this, it's going to be automatically added to the array here once you start the bot. This is, again, just for ease of use for actually checking the emotes themselves. And so we can actually do that now. So what you want to do is you want to come down to your bot's chat message handler right here. And right after our word array variable right here, we need to set up a for loop. So we're going to say for, we're going to let the index start at 0, just like always. And we are iterating over the alert emotes key length. So for every emote that we are checking for, we are going to do something with the chat message. And within this loop, first thing we're going to do is we are going to grab the current emote. So we're going to declare a constant, call it current emote, and that is going to be equal to the alert emotes at the alert emotes key at the current index of the loop. And so what we're doing is we are actually grabbing the JSON object relating to, in this case, Stinky Cheese. And this will happen for every emote that you have within this object. So once we have that, we are going to say that if the word array, which is a array containing every word that is within every chat message that comes in, so just a single chat message, it breaks it down into every word. So if the word array includes the current emote that we're checking for, so in this case, the alert emotes key at the current index, and if the emote that we are checking for is not on cooldown, so we're going to say if the current date and time, like this, minus the current emote dot cooldown is greater than 0, which means that the current emote alert can be triggered. It's no longer on cooldown. So if both of these conditions are met, we're going to set up a conditional. So first, we're going to check if the current date and time minus the current emote's time to trigger is greater than 0. And if this is the case, what that means is that we have triggered an alert, or we have failed to trigger an alert, and we are attempting to do so again, or for the first time. So if we are attempting to trigger an emote for the first time, or trigger an emote alert for the first time, what we're going to do is we are going to say we want the current trigger time. So we want to set a new trigger time, and that new trigger time is going to be in a constant. We're going to declare this as just the current date and time, and then we are going to push the current date and time ahead by 30 seconds. The way that we do that is we say the new trigger time dot set seconds, which takes a single argument. And what we're going to do is we're going to say the current seconds, so new trigger time dot get seconds. So this is the current seconds that are on the date and time. And then we're just going to add 30 to it. So the new trigger time dot set seconds and an argument of the new trigger time get seconds plus 30. Then we are going to set the current emote's used amount to 1, meaning that in our case, Stinky Cheese has been put into the chat 1 time, and now we are waiting to see if we can trigger it enough times to trigger an alert within the next 30 seconds. And then we're going to say the current emote's time to trigger is equal to the new trigger time. So once this occurs, the chat now has 30 seconds to spam, in our case, Stinky Cheese, enough times to trigger the emote alert. Now, the other case here is that we have already started spamming the appropriate emote, in our case, Stinky Cheese, and we are just trying to count and make sure that we hit the amount of emote spams before the time to trigger is up. So in this case, we're going to say else, and we are just going to increment the used amount by 1. So each time the current emote, so in our case, Stinky Cheese, is used within those 30 seconds, we are going to increase the number of times that that emote has been used by 1. And then that sets us up for a new conditional, which is going to say if the current emote used amount is greater than or equal to a number of times that we are looking to spam an emote to get an alert. In my case, I have a pretty small chat at this point as of the recording of this video. So I'm just going to say if someone or enough people spam Stinky Cheese 3 times within 30 seconds, this is going to trigger a emote alert. So if we do this within 30 seconds, what we're going to do is we're going to set a new cooldown time. So we're going to say a constant of new cooldown, which is equal to the current date and time, just like before. Then we want the cooldown, in my case, to be 5 minutes before we can trigger this emote alert again. So we're going to say the new cooldown. So instead of saying set seconds, we are going to say set minutes. And then for the argument, we are going to say the new cooldown dot get minutes, which is the current minutes amount of the current date and time, plus 5. And then we are going to set the cooldown of the current emote to the new cooldown value. And then what we're going to do is we are going to emit a socket event to our overlay. So we're going to say io.sockets.emit, and we are going to emit an event of emote alert. And for the data that we are passing in, we are going to pass in a JSON object, which is going to have 2 attributes. We're going to say the alert emote that was triggered, and that is going to be equal to the alert emote key at the current index. And then we're also going to pass in the alert message, which is going to be equal to the current emote dot alert message. And this is going to be everything that we need on the bot side of this functionality. So the next thing you want to do is you want to go into your overlays HTML file, and you want to add in an empty div. I just added mine in right here on line 18. You just want to add in a new div with an ID of emote alert section. Once you do that, we're going to go to our CSS file of the overlay itself, because this just makes it easier for auto completion once we do the JavaScript side of this on the overlay. So just give us some padding, and we are going to first start off with the emote alert section ID. So hashtag emote alert section. And within this, we want this to have a position of relative, because we want to place this relatively to the main div of the overlay. And we want the top position of this to be 270 pixels below the top edge of the screen. You can adjust this however you like. I just wanted it to be around a quarter of the way down the screen. And then we are going to set up the animation for how this alert slides in and out. So we're going to set up a keyframes animation, and we are going to call it emote alert animation. And at 0%, we want the right position of the alert to be at negative 50%. We want this to be very cleanly off the screen. And then at 10%, we want this to have a position of right of 0, meaning that it is sitting against the right edge of the screen. And then at 90%, we are going to actually say the same thing, because we want this to remain for a certain number of seconds. So we're just going to say at 90%, our right position is still 0. And then at 100%, we want the right position to go back to negative 50%, so that it cleanly leaves the screen. Next up, we want to set up an emote alert ID. Within this is just personal styling, but this may put you on a good path to start your own. So for this, we want the positioning to be absolute. So it's going to be positioned absolutely within the emote alert container. And we also want the display to be that of inline block, so that everything stays on the same line as much as you can anyway. We want some padding of 8 pixels all around. We want our background color to be semi-transparent. So we're going to say background, then we're going to say RGBA, which is a CSS function that takes in 4 arguments. So it's going to take in the red value, the green value, and the blue value. So I want this to be a really, really dark blue. And then the transparency value, which goes from 0 to 1. So I want this to be 25% visible. So I'm going to say 0.25. And then we want to set the animation name to the emote alert animation that we just created. We want to set the the animation duration to 5 seconds so that this doesn't stay, too long and overstay its welcome. And then we want the animation fill mode to be forward so that it stays in the position that it is at the end of the animation. And that's going to be it for that. And so the next thing you want to do is have a hashtag emote alert image ID. This is just going to keep everything nice and positioned within the container as a whole. Otherwise, it tries to do some weird stuff. So we're going to have this as a display of inline block. We're going to set the height to 56 pixels so that no matter what we do, whatever kind of image that we throw in, it will keep the height at 56 pixels so that we don't end up just exploding something on the screen, unless it's something you want to do. And then we set the width to auto so that it adjusts the width determined by the height of the image. And the last thing that we're going to need to set styling for is the emote alert message. So hashtag emote alert message. And this is going to take a display of inline block, just like everything else. I want the color of the font to be white smoke. So not exactly pure white, but pretty much white. And then we want our font size to be 48 pixels. Then we also want to set a margin left of 8 pixels so that the image and the message don't sit right next to each other as a nice, comfortable little buffer. And once we have all of this CSS done, we can get rid of all of our buffer here and then head over to our overlay file and then just scroll down to the bottom, and we are going to set a new socket listener for the overlay. So let's give us some buffer to work with. So we are going to say socket.on, which is going to take in 2 parameters, just like we've been doing already. And the emote event, the socket event that we are looking for is emote alert. And then we're just going to pass in a function with a parameter of alert content, which is what we pulled in earlier from the bot. And within this function, we are going to first grab the emote alert container. So we're going to create a constant. We're going to say emote alert section, and that's going to be equal to a document.getElement.byId with an argument of emote alert section. Now we want to change the inner HTML of the emote alert section to then pull in all of the data that we received from the bot and then show the alert. So we're going to say the emote alert section dot inner HTML. That is going to be equal to a single quote here, that's important, a div, and close that right here. And this div is going to have a ID of emote alert. Within this div, we are going to create a image. So we're going to have a image tag with a source from the assets folder / emote alerts / and then we want to close our string right here because we need this to be dynamic. This is where, watching your quotes, your single quotes and your double quotes gets really tricky. So pay attention. So we're going to say plus the alert content dot alert emote, so in this case, sticky cheese, plus single quote dot png, and then close the double quote right there. And then after the double quote, put a slash, because this is a self-contained image. We also want the image to have an ID of emote alert image. And if you're wondering about the folder structure right here, if you look on the left in the assets folder, I created a new folder called emote alerts. You'll also notice I created a sounds folder, which we're going to be using in a bit. So just within your assets folder, if you're following along exactly, just within your assets folder, create an emote alerts folder right here, which will contain the PNG files for whatever image that you want to display alongside your alert, and then also any sounds within the sounds folder of any sounds that you want to go along with it. So now that we have our image created, what we're going to do is we're going to come down again. We're going to create a span, and this span is going to have an ID of emote alert message and the content of this message. So we're going to have a single quote and then another single quote. We're going to say the content of this message is going to be the alert content dot the alert message plus, and then close the span. And now if you wanted to have audio playing with your alert, here's how you go about doing that. You open a audio tag, and within this audio tag, you create a source. So you open a new tag and call it source, which is a self-containing tag. So you just end it with a slash. And so within this source, you have an attribute of source, but spelled SRC. And then you go into your assets folder, slash emote alerts, slash sounds. And then just like before, with the image, we have to be careful with our single and double quotes. So we're going to say single quote, and then plus the alert content dot alert emote. So mind you, you want your file names for both your image, your PNG image, and your sound file to be the same as the emote that you're trying to trigger. And it is case sensitive. So in my case, if you look on the left again, I have Stinky Cheese, capital S, capital C, and then .png, and then Stinky Cheese, same way, .mp3. So now you would say plus single quote .mp3. Then on the other side of this double quote, we have a new attribute that we're going to say is type. And since this is an MP3 file, we need this type to be specifically audio slash MPEG. This is how you play MP3 files. So just to keep this readable, we will bring this down, and then also this down. And also, this is actually done. This is it. This is all we need in order to have our alert show and also have the audio play that is in relation to it. And actually, I think I made a mistake. I don't think that you have a slash right here. So I'll just take that out. Now, we want to clear the alert emotes section after 5 seconds. So what we want to do is we want to say set timeout, like we've done several times before. We're going to have this with 2 arguments, one being a function and the other being the time that we need to wait before this happens. So in our case, 5 seconds. So we're going to have that as 5,000 milliseconds. And within the function, we are just going to change the emote alert section's inner HTML to just be an empty string, which then clears out the section so we can then use it again later. And now that we've done all of that, what we can do is we can spam the Stinky Cheese 3 times within the chat to test and make sure that this works. So I'm going to open up my chat and I'm going to put in Stinky Cheese, Stinky Cheese, Stinky Cheese, throw the cheese. And that is how you create a chat triggered alert using emotes that your chat can control and will also only activate if they do enough emote spams of that specific emote within a certain amount of time, and then will also go on cooldown. So if I spam Stinky Cheese 3 more times, 1, 2, 3, you'll notice that the alert did not go off because we have to wait 5 minutes from the time that the alert was triggered for that to happen again. And also, before I end the video, I did forget a small instruction within the else block of the emote triggering process, or the emote alert triggering process. So if the alert is actually triggered within the for loop that we set up here, what we want to do is after we emit the alert, we want to actually break the loop. And the reason for this is that we don't want multiple alerts to be triggered at the exact same time, because otherwise we would end up getting clashes and things just wouldn't work correctly. However, that's just a small change. You can actually ignore that if you do want multiple emote alerts to be triggered at the same time. That's fine. I, however, am choosing to only let one go through at a time. So in the next video, we are going to take a quick detour from all of our alerts and actually show how to pause the alerts that we've created. So say if you have a situation where you are in a dialogue heavy section of a RPG and you don't want text-to-speech alerts or any other kind of alert to clutter the screen, you can pause the alerts and then resume them at a later time. So if you want to find out how to do that, click the video above my head, like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.